Hi everyone, welcome to The Project. My name is Kale, and I'm here to let you know what to expect over the next hour. In the next few minutes, our band is going to come up and play a couple songs. It's not a concert, but something here that we call worship. The songs we choose talk about who God is and what He's done for us, and singing them is a way that we can worship Him. So engage in however you'd like. Sit, stand, sing along, or put your hands up, or maybe just for you, it's to listen and reflect on the lyrics. Nobody is here to judge you, so relax and enjoy the time. Every week we go to the Bible, and tonight Amanda, our Connections pastor, will share a message based on its truths and how it applies to our lives today. Afterwards, we would love to hang out and get to know you, so make sure to visit the Connect booth in the lobby to receive your welcome gift and answer any questions you might have. Thanks again for joining us. We are so excited you're here. We invite you to stand as the band starts to play.
Hey guys, welcome to The Project tonight. Why don't you go ahead and worship with us? Following a map you've never seen, stumbling out into the road alone. You're out on your own, nobody knows. Out here in the wild, it's hard to see. I'm feeling my way, but the light is low. And God only knows, God only knows. Where do we go from here? Sing into the fire, oh, into the fire, into the flames we'll go, out on the wire, into the deep below. I love you, I love you. Out of breath, but gaining clarity as hope begins to grow. Yeah, my love is true. All my love is for you. Oh, into the fire, into the flames we'll go, out on the wire, into the deep below. I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you. Oh, I love you. Oh, I love you. Oh, I love you. Into the fire. Oh, into the fire. Into the flames we'll go, out on the wire, into the deep below. I love you. I love you. I love you. Let's sing this together. Take the keys. Take the keys to my heart. Investigate every part. Place a seal on my chest. All for you. It's all my best. And I've made my choice. I the cold, light the flame, make me glow, forever yours, in your hand, and all I have, and all I am, and I've made my choice, I've set my course, oh to you, oh to you, love has marked my life, so I will give my life, oh to you, oh to you, it's all we have, a final breath, the mind be filled with praise for you, and everything from now to then, be a song I sing for you. Sing all we'll have, and all we have, a final breath, the mind be filled with praise for you, and everything from now to then, be a song I sing for you, and I've made my choice, I've set my course, oh to you, oh to you, love has marked my life, so I will give my life, oh to you, oh to you, and I've set my choice, I've set my course, oh to you, oh to you, your love has marked my life, so I will give my life, oh to you, oh to you, yeah. We should sing that chorus again. I've made my choice. And I've made my choice. I've set my course. Oh to you. Oh to you. Your love has marked my life, so I will give my life. Oh to you. Oh to you. So again, welcome to Project tonight, guys. My name is Brett. I'm one of the pastors here. I just want to say that stoked that you decided to be here tonight. Also want to say hey to everyone who's watching online right now. Glad that you guys are tuning in from home or from wherever you're watching from right now. But you can go ahead and take a seat here, and we're just going to have a couple announcements for you.
Hey guys, thank you guys so much for being here and just joining us in person or online, whichever one you're choosing to do. My name is John, if you haven't seen me already, and I'm, I guess gonna do some announcements here today. So if you didn't see outside in the lobby, there's kind of this table set up with a bunch of bins. If you didn't actually read it, this is kind of what it's about. So recently what happened is At Hope Mission, which is one of Edmonton's inner city organizations that helps the homeless. They give lots of meal supplies, like winter gear, things like that. And so what recently happened is their warehouse actually kind of lit up on fire, which is really unfortunate. And so they lost so much supplies that has to do with like winter gear, all those different things. And so one thing that we can do as an initiative for the project is to just support, and we're always looking for ways to do that, to be for our city. So what we're trying to do for this month is actually fill up those bins in the lobby and actually give even more than that if that is possible. So if you would like to learn more about it, learn about what items you need to give, or even drop off details, head to the link, theprojectyeg.com/events. So after the service, once again, if you're online, we are doing Discord again afterwards. So our team is going to be hanging out with you guys, playing Scribblio, which is kind of like this Pictionary style game. Yeah, it's going to be pretty sweet, lots of fun. So afterwards, if you don't want to actually play the game, that's no problem at all. We have the option to have open text and open talk so that you can just connect with different people. Yeah, so other than that, before we actually continue our series for today, just take a look at this video before Amanda comes up.
Guys, I want to talk about speeding tickets for a second, okay? It's not a sore spot, but I want to talk about it. So I'm not talking about photo radar, okay? I'm talking about being pulled over by a cop on the side of the road. Have you guys been pulled over by a cop? Yes? Okay, thank you. I heard at least one yes. I'm not alone. It can be terrifying, okay? Or at least it's nerve-wracking to begin with. I remember my very first time that I got pulled over by a cop. I was going 44 kilometers in a 30-kilometer school zone. And I should clarify, yes, it was a school zone, but there were no kids like playing in the streets, okay? I wasn't in danger of hitting a child. It was by a high school. And for some reason, I care less about slowing down next to high schools than I do elementary schools. If you're in high school, I apologize. I'm gonna try and do better, but it's a reality. So I got pulled over. The cop comes to my window, and I was worried. I'm like, this is my first time being pulled over. Is he going to yell? Am I gonna get this like super expensive ticket? Because again, school zone. I was like, oh shoot, what is this gonna be? Guys, to my shock, I just got let off with a warning. I did not think that was gonna happen. I didn't even have to give an excuse, I don't think. I don't even know what I told him. But he just gave me a warning, which, like, what a winner of a cop. He was kind, he was soft-spoken, and he just gave me that warning. And I was not expecting it. I was rattled by the whole process and then quickly, like, relieved at the same time. I realized not everyone is as lucky, but I still wanted to tell you that I was let off with a warning. But there are some interesting ways, very interesting ways that people use to get out of a ticket. Lying, obviously not a good idea, don't lie. Plus, I feel like cops are always expecting us to lie to them. So from what I've found, people get weird when it comes to possibly getting a ticket. So here's some examples. Use these at your own discretion, okay? I'm not telling you to use them, but here's some examples. So one person said, they tried to offer the cops some perspective by saying that speeding isn't nearly as bad as murder or arson, so they should be let off. I'm like, okay. Someone else said they started quoting William Shakespeare to the cop until the cop got annoyed and just let them go. So I'm like, okay, that's creative. Okay, this last one, I don't know if it's like weird or impressive. I'll let you guys decide. But this person, after being handed a ticket, the person took the ticket from the cop, scrunched it up into a ball, put it into their mouth, chewed it up and swallowed it while maintaining eye contact the entire time with the cop. They were not given another ticket after the first one was swallowed. So, you could try it? I don't know what to say to that one, but clearly it worked if you want to try. But being let off the hook, especially for a crime that you are guilty of, one of the best feelings out there. Like, that is the definition of relief. Like when someone shows you that kind of like grace or kindness, you do not forget it. I remember the details of that day when I got pulled over. It was in May, it was sunny, I remember the street, exactly where. I could tell you more, but I'll stop. Like you get the idea. And I would like to think that like I have been that kind or that gracious to someone else, like where it sticks out in their memory. It doesn't stick out in my memory, but maybe it does, so I don't know. I should work on that probably. But we're in this series called Jesus Is. And we've been talking about, as you could probably guess, who Jesus is and why he matters. Now, this could be like brand new to you, or this could be just like baseline knowledge to you. But my challenge to you is this. If a stranger or a friend were to come up to you and ask you, okay, who is Jesus? Like, would you know what to say? Or if they were to ask you, like, okay, like, what did he do? What is he known for? Or what is he like? Why does he matter? Like, would you have an answer to those questions? Like, it's hard. It's hard to verbalize. It seems like we should know, but it can be hard to verbalize some of this stuff. So this series, we're actually breaking it down and going through aspects of who Jesus is. And tonight we're focusing on, first, what is grace? And why does it matter? When we talk about the grace of God, like what do we mean by that? And I actually want you to quickly try and define this in your head for yourself. When it comes to explaining the grace of God, what is that? What do you say? Like this concept of grace, it's just a hard thing to nail down sometimes. It can feel like you're trying to understand a math equation that just doesn't really add up. Verbalizing an answer or knowing what it means should, in theory, come easily to us if we are followers of Christ. But does it? Like, how do we explain it to someone? Because I find like God's grace can just feel really abstract at times. Have you guys ever seen one of these before? You'll see it on the screen. Yeah, so that. It is called if you're not familiar, it's called a stereogram. So it's a 2D image, obviously. But if you stare at it long enough and in the right way, a 3D image will pop out from it. Whether it's I don't know, an animal or a flower. And so if you're trying to see it right now, you probably can't. You have to have it in front of your face, and a paper copy is much easier than on a screen. But it is hidden within there. A 3D image will pop out from it when you look at it straight on. Now the trick with these is that you know it's there. You know a picture is in there. But you can't always grasp it. It can feel abstract. And that is kind of what God's grace feels like sometimes. It's simple, but it's complex. We think we understand it, but do we fully grasp what it actually means for us? If you have felt discouraged or confused by this, yeah, you're definitely not alone in that. Because it's a big topic to talk about. The good news here, though, the good news is that the entire gospel is built on God's grace. Grace is literally the point of the gospel. So the term gospel means good news. It talks about the good news of Jesus, why he came, what he did. So you may know in the Bible there's books called Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. They are called the Gospels. And they talk about Jesus and what he did and why he matters. And I can't sum 4 books up, but that's what they're about. So to help us kind of begin to understand this, we're going to look at Romans. And it talks about the significance of Jesus. It says, when we were utterly helpless, Christ came at just the right time and died for us sinners. Now, most people would not be willing to die for an upright person, though someone might be perhaps willing to die for a person who is especially good. But God showed his great love for us by sending Christ to die while we were still sinners. And since we have been made right in God's sight by the blood of Christ, he will certainly save us from God's condemnation. So essentially, this is what the gospel is about. The entire message of who Jesus is and why he came, why he died. Again, it's good, but it doesn't yet give us that clear understanding of what grace is. But in Ephesians, it says this: God saved you by his grace when you believed. And you can't take credit for this. It is a gift from God. Salvation is not a reward for the good things that we have done, so none of us can boast about it. So essentially, when we look at grace, whether it's from God or just from another person, grace is unmerited favor. It's when we are let off the hook, even though we are fully guilty. It's another chance that we really don't deserve. That is grace. Or think about it this way. When was the last time that you were in a place or situation where you came to God about something? About whether there's a mistake that you made or just a mess that you find yourself in. And you're thinking, I have been here so many times before. I have no right to come to God about this and ask for his help again. I can't go to God about this again. Or just when the word sorry has lost all of its meaning because you've said it so often. And God, he still steps in and he's like, no, come to me and ask for my help again. That is grace. Or when he says, you know what? No, it's okay. You are forgiven. Again, you're clear. You are good with me. That is grace. Or when he reminds us again, hey, whatever you did, whatever mess you were in again, doesn't change how I see you, how you feel about you. That is God's grace. It's that second chance. It's that 85th chance. And this is the part that I think a lot of us have a really hard time with. We don't understand it. It can be really hard to grasp because we don't operate in this way with each other for the majority of our lives. In 2 Timothy, it says this: For God saved us and called us to live a holy life. He did this not because we deserved it, but because that was his plan from before the beginning of time, to show us his grace through Christ Jesus. This is the one thing we have to somehow wrap our minds around about grace. Whether it's grace from God or grace from other people, grace is never deserved. Being let off the hook is not something that we've earned the right to when it's our screw up. How messed up would it have been if after the cop lets me off with a warning, I was like, yeah, good. I deserve this. I earned the right for a second chance. No, I do not. I earned the right to get a ticket. There's nothing that I earned there besides this form of punishment. Grace is never deserved. It is only offered. You can't work your way towards it. That's not how it works. I don't care who you are. And if we let it, grace has this, it can completely offer us a new way of living. Our closest companions do not have to be past guilt or past regret or past shame. We can completely take a breath and rest in the fact that no matter what mistake we make, we can't lose God. We can't be cut off from him or from his love. He doesn't hold our crap against us. Just sit with that for a second. Because when we sin, again, we don't have to earn our way back to him. That is grace. And God, he actually comes in. He takes it one step further. He's like, you know what? Not only am I eager to forgive you when you confess, I want to come in and actually help you clean up the mess. Let's figure out what went wrong. Let's work through it. How can you grow from this? What needs to change? But grace, it's really hard to grasp because it offers us so much when we have done zero things to deserve it. But at the same time, nothing else gives hope to our lives like grace does. To have that second chance, that third chance, that 83rd chance. But here's the thing. Yes, grace is good, but there are barriers to it. I can think of 3 barriers. This list is probably not conclusive. You could probably add more to it. But there are barriers to grace. Because if it's so good and so pure and so life-changing, then why don't we live like it? Why does it have a bigger impact on our lives? Like, why are we caught in this? It seems like a rat race of sin, and we have moments where we kind of hate ourselves, or we hate what we're doing, or we just really dislike how our lives are turning out. Like, where's the grace in that? So the first barrier that we face is apathy or indifference towards grace. And this often happens to those of us, if we've been Christians for a while, the dust kind of settles. You might lose some of that initial excitement or passion or like the feeling or emotion that comes with it. So in a sense, we get used to it. We get used to God's grace. But even more than that, the enemy will always try to convince us that sin isn't really sin. So we will look for loopholes. We will convince ourselves that I don't really need God's grace as much. We don't pay as much attention to it. Or we come to believe that, I only need grace in the really big things. Whether we're aware of this or not, we act like we only need grace in those big mistakes, the ones we can't clean up ourselves. But the little stuff, that day-to-day stuff, we're good there. I can clean that mess up. That's okay. So we underestimate it. We underestimate grace, and we end up trying to live without it most days because we think we can handle it. And the Bible, it actually warns us against that. In 2 Corinthians, it says, "As God's partners, we beg you not to accept this marvelous gift of God's kindness and then ignore it." Another translation says the verse this way: "We urge you not to receive God's grace in vain." Don't ignore his grace or your need for it. Because once we get to that point where we have a calloused heart or an indifferent attitude, that is a sign that we need grace that much more. Because we should never, ever come to a point where we expect grace. And that brings us to our second barrier: pride. Pride is a big one. Pride is one of those things, it can happen so easily, whether we think we're being mindful of it or not. Pride is a huge barrier to understanding God's grace for us because we start to believe and live like God owes us something. Or when we start treating his grace like a safety net, we live however we want to live, we just repeat the same sins over and over and over because we told ourselves, it's okay. God, he'll forgive me. He will understand I was having a bad day. He'll get it. We think that we can just live with no consequences. And if we come to that point in our faith, we're actually making a mockery of what Jesus did for us on the cross. And in Galatians, it says this: "Don't be misled. You cannot mock the justice of God. You will always harvest what you plant. Those who live only to satisfy their own sinful nature will harvest decay and death from that sinful nature. But those who live to please the Spirit will harvest everlasting life from the Spirit." Another verse in Matthew says this: "The scriptures say, you must not test the Lord your God." His grace is pure and very honest and freely offered to us. But it is not something that we should expect or take advantage of. You may have heard of a guy, his name is Dietrich Bonhoeffer, and he was a German pastor and a theologian, and he actually lived through the wars, and he was killed by the Nazis, basically at the very end of the Second World War. But throughout the Second World War, before he died, he was writing about how he couldn't understand why so many members of the German church refused to stand up to Hitler and the Nazis. And it wasn't that they agreed with Hitler or nothing like that, and they didn't want to see the Jews suffer, But he writes about how they weren't willing to stand up for what was right, and he called it cheap grace. He said, yes, standing up to Hitler at that time would have been dangerous. Therefore, many people reasoned, well, maybe I am being cowardly, and maybe it is wrong, but God will overlook it. He accepts us despite our sin. Like, coming to that kind of conclusion, it's dangerous. That is a dangerous way to live because it's a misinformed understanding of what grace is. It's cheap grace. And if we kind of think that, you know what, God, he just forgives us, he overlooks our sin with a shrug, then we will take our sin lightly because apparently God does too. He shrugs it off. It's fine. He'll get it. But when we actually take a second to look at the cross and realize that our salvation literally cost Jesus everything he had. It cost him his life. He gave up heaven to come be with us and went through brutal suffering that we do not understand. And when we realize or even try to start to understand the weight of that, we can begin to understand how costly grace is. The grace of God should not be cheap because it cost him everything. God takes our sin seriously, very seriously, because like I said, he gets it. He understands the gravity of it. And it's because of his grace that we get to have hope and life even after death. And that is the gospel. That is what we are called to share with other people. It should not be a well-kept secret. And that brings us to our third barrier, withholding grace from other people. We are often reluctant to have grace for others until we are reminded ourselves just how much we need it. You can't always just be told you're sinful. That just gets old. Sometimes you actually have to be shown that we are all sinful people. And that part can be painful. Guys, I have been there. So there was a time, I'm going to tell you a true story. There was a time where I definitely screwed up, and I received grace and kindness from a friend, even though I did not deserve it. So long story short, this friend and I, we had a different approach to a conflict that was going on. And we were talking on the phone about it. And when I got off the phone, I was frustrated. And so I made the very wise decision to go into Snapchat. And I wanted to vent to another friend of mine. I was like, I got to get this off my chest. So I went to Snapchat, vented, meant to send it to that other friend, but instead sent it to the friend that I was talking about in the snap. And as soon as I sent it, I was like, oh my gosh, what have I just done? It was instant dread. So I called her and I told her, I was like, hey, you're gonna get a snap from me. Wasn't meant for you to see, but I am talking about you in it. So there's that. And I was like, I'm so sorry. I felt so awful, such a crap friend. And her response was beyond gracious. She was so kind. She was like, hey, you were frustrated. She's like, and you needed to vent, and that is okay, but let's talk about it. So we did. And like I said, she was gracious and she was quick to forgive me and even reassure me multiple times. And it was not fake kind of forgiving or that passive aggressive version where the person's voice gets higher. They're like, no, it's fine. And they ignore you after. It was legit. We're still friends. And as much as I was grateful for her response, it was painful. It was not a fun process. But as painful as it can be sometimes, we need those moments to remind us that we need to offer grace just as quickly as we are willing to receive it. Every single one of us needs grace as much as the next person. We never outgrow our need for grace. I don't care how old you get. We always need it. And it's those moments of humility where even when you're forced to be humble, as tough as those moments can be, they have this ability to completely crush our apathy and our pride and remind us how much we need to extend grace to other people if we think we also need it. In James 4, it says, "And he gives grace generously. As the scriptures say, God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble." It's a process to be able to grasp God's grace. And on top of that, to accept the depth of his love, like to the point where it's actually part of our identity. It's at the core of who we are. That is a process, and it's often a slow one, full of a lot of reminders of our shortcomings, but that's okay. It's very much a worthwhile process. But there does come a point where you and I, we have to choose. Like, are we going to forever question and doubt the grace of God? Or are we going to accept it and actually live like we believe it? Because too many of us, we have this tendency to believe that as soon as we mess up, once we do that sin again, whatever it is, God is now against us. It's us versus God. That's how it feels like sometimes. And we end up focusing way more on our sin than we do on God's grace. And we need to flip that constantly. In Romans 8, it says, "What shall we say about such wonderful things as these? If God is for us, who can ever be against us? For God himself has given us right standing with himself." Meaning that, like, when God looks at us, he looks at us with pride and deep love, despite the mess that we are currently drowning in. Like, we are always in good standing with God because it's not about us or what we've done. It is always about him and what he did on the cross. In this verse in Romans, it goes on to say, there is literally nothing, including death. There's nothing that can separate us from God's love. So if we want to start living out of a place of grace, then a really good place to start is to recognize just how much God is for you. He is not against you, because that is his grace. And secondly, one of the best ways to practically live this out, to live out of a place of grace, is actually take stock of our past. Like, to look back and remember what we've done, even the worst of it. Because grace, it actually forces us to face that pain of our regrets, but acknowledge that grace never asks us to pay for any of that. Because Jesus, he did that. He paid that for us. So it's actually really good for us to, like, look back on our life and take stock. Like, what prayers has he answered? What has he forgiven you for? Over and over and over again. Like, rather than trying to forget all those past, like, regrets and mistakes, those things that you failed at, we can instead look back and celebrate just how much we've been forgiven. That is an incredible gift. But we can't let ourselves, don't let yourselves be paralyzed by those mistakes, those failures in your past. Jesus did not go to the cross for us to feel guilty and less than all the time. His grace actually allows us to look back and make peace with our past. But also we can look ahead and have this incredible hope for our future. So my hope for each of us is that we would allow grace to shift our focus from our own sins, from our own shortcomings, and instead focus on the goodness of God. Recognize how much he has already done for us and how much more he wants to do. Can I pray for you guys? God, I thank you for your grace. It is something that is hard to wrap our minds around and just believe or accept. So I pray for anyone here tonight who's just in a place that feels undeserving or they feel indifferent to it. God, I pray that you would meet them exactly where they are, that your voice, your truth would be louder than our feelings, our emotions. God, that it would be your hope that we would cling to, and we would not cling to our sins or our past mistakes. God, would you come and do what only you can do? We ask this in your name. Amen. You guys can stand.
Where would I be without your love? Where would I be without your grace? You lifted me up upon a rock and carried me to a safer place. With an ocean of fear in front of me, you have split the sea in two. And through all my anxious thoughts and wavering, I can always count on you. Sing, where would I be? Where would I be without your love? Where would I be without your grace? Like rivers that find their way to sea, God, you have made a way for me. With an ocean of fear in front of me, you have split the sea in two. And through all my anxious thoughts and wavering, I can always count on you. And oh God, there you stand. I'm overcome with love again. Your kindness welcomes me in. You have my heart, my God, my friend. And oh God, there you stand. I'm overcome with love again. Your kindness welcomes me in. You have my heart, my God, my friend. Let's sing that together, oh God. And oh God, there you stand. I'm overcome with love again. understand. I'm overcome with love again. See your kindness. Your kindness welcomes me in. Oh, you have my heart, my God, my friend. Oh, you have my heart and my God, my friend. Oh, you have my heart, my God, my friend. Here I am, down on my knees again, surrendering all, surrendering all. Find me here, Lord, as you draw me near, desperate for you, desperate for you. And I surrender. So drench my soul. Drench my soul as mercy and grace unfold. A hunger and thirst, a hunger and thirst. With arms stretched wide, I know you hear my cry. Speak to me now. Speak to me now. And I surrender. I surrender. I want to know you more. I want to know you more. I surrender. I surrender. And I want to know you surrender. I want to know you more. I want to know you more. I surrender. I surrender. And I want to know you more. I want to know you more. So, Father, I just pray tonight that that would be the cry of our hearts, that we would want to know you more. God, that we would look back on the things that you've done in our lives. We would look back on moments where when we've screwed up or we've done something wrong, you've given us grace. God, I pray that we would just look back on those moments and it would just stir our hearts in such a way and make us want to seek you more, to want to go deeper with you, to know you in just a more real way. And God, I just pray for anyone who's maybe watching online right now or they're here in person and they're almost scared to take that next step of fully surrendering themselves to you. I pray, Lord, that they would just know that there's nothing greater than devoting our lives to you. There's no greater joy. There's no greater sense of hope or purpose or meaning that we can receive than when we just kind of give everything to you. It's what you demand of us, and yet it's the best decision we can make. So God, I pray that you would help us, give us the faith and the courage to learn what it means to surrender our lives to you tonight. But we thank you for just this time of getting to worship you and to sing to you, and it's in your name we pray. Amen. Awesome. Thanks, guys. You can go ahead and take a seat.
All right, guys, thank you for being here and just spending part of your Sunday with us. This is our favorite night of the week because of you guys. And we do want to direct you to a place on our website. It's called Next. It's going to come up. Anyways, if you are here and you just want to chat or pray or meet or talk about something, or you're you know what, I want a devotional, I want to start somewhere or restart somewhere, that is the best place to start. So go ahead there if that's you. Also, if you are new or you're sort of new or you're not new, you just have questions and want to meet someone, I'm going to be at our Connect booth right out there by the stairs. You're going to see a Connect booth banner. Come chat with me. I'd love to meet you. Got a little gift for you, sort of. No, it's a gift. Come over there. I'd love to meet you. Also, if you are watching online, they are going to play a game online after called Scriblio. Yeah, that's right. It's like Pictionary. So anyways, go play that because that'll be fun. Why not, if you're good at drawing or not. For the rest of you, if you want to play, you can do that too because it's kind of cold out. But we have fires outside. We have hot chocolate. We got cookies. So it's going to be good. But yeah, thanks for coming, guys. We'll see you next week.